So it's not just who shows up in our advertising, it's not just who's in the room, but it's also how are we making a core impact not just to communities, but to our own bottom line, and really thinking about how can we do well by doing good.
Nikki, thank you so much for joining us. I would love to start on your career because you've been in the financial banking industry for the majority of your career.
A long time,
right?
yes.
The banking world can feel exclusionary to a lot of communities. I'm curious how that has changed over the course of your career. How have you seen that shift?
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot, actually. I was very aware of being the only one like me in a lot of rooms and a lot of conversations. And now we've shifted to a place where I rarely feel like the only person like me in a room these days. Instead, it's gone a few steps further where we're thinking about the people in the room making the decisions, not just at junior levels, but at the table being able to make the call are also diverse.
I know you've called representation future-proofing your business.
That's right.
So in a way, it's a recession-proof investment.
Yeah, we are approaching the place where we are becoming a majority-minority country. We are approaching a place globally where women are a greater portion of the workforce. The rates of people who identify as LGBTQ+ span anywhere from 15% to 50%, depending on, the survey, the data that you look at. And so you can't do things the old way. If this is what your customer base, this is what the communities where you live and work and operate look like.
I wonder if you can give me an example of a time when you were in the room and a project ended up differently because of your presence.
It happens every day.
Yep.
Always love to talk about my favorite things that I've done in my career, which is working on our Chosen Name initiative, which is where we enable trans and non-binary people to use their chosen first name on their Citi branded credit card and now debit card here in the US. And that is work that's critically important because what we know is 70% of trans people go by a name other than their legal name, and they don't have anything that reflects it. When we went to start marketing, one of the questions was, how do we talk to this community in a way that is authentic? I like to operate under the slogan, there can be nothing about us without us. So if we're gonna be talking about trans people, well, we need trans people involved in that process. And so as we started creating the marketing and creative around it, we had trans people in front of the camera, behind the camera. And so it's just been really important to be able to say, as a person of color, as a woman, as a person who grew up poor and in the South, I understand what it's like to not be included in people talking about you. And so I have enough wherewithal to be able to say, wait a minute, let's take a pause. Let's make sure we bring the right people in the room and we get this right.
Nikki, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and your insight on all of your work.
Thank you, Madison. I appreciate it.